Okay, dokie. Alright, let's start with that bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan Torah. Amen.
Amen.
Right. Okay, so basically, all the stuff that we were talking about going into the feasts, when we were discussing Shavuot, when we were discussing Sukkot, when we were discussing, there was always this overriding sort of theme running behind us that we were talking about covenants, right?
Yes.
Basically, the central being of living Allah. One, two, three, four. Right. Okay, this being the feast of Shavuot. Okay. Now, if we look at the way the menorah is done, everything is going to be connected to our central being.
Yes.
Okay? That being again the shamash. And that shamash is the circle, right? So we know that everything that was going on at that time, as we were looking at it, was about the Ketubah. It was about him establishing this covenant with Israel. And yeah, in Wednesday night studies, obviously we've gone over that. So what I thought was we would do just a revision about what it is to make a covenant and how these things sort of get up and they overlap. Right, because obviously we get stuck into discussions that say the old covenant is now done away with and now we just have to worry about the new covenant, but what does that mean? Where do you get the new covenant scriptures from? Do you understand what those imply? And as we look at those things and we dissect those things, we realize that those things are started off in many cases with Acts 2 and also the crucifixion, and will only come into its fullness in millennial reign and thereafter. Okay, so you guys had some homework for me. So we had some basic, again, there should be a revision, right? Basic covenant layouts before. Alright? The first covenant that God made with a people or with a man.
You could say Adam, but you're probably looking at Noah.
Right. Okay, what type of covenant would Adam have?
Well, the lingo in Genesis sort of speaks like a covenant, but it would be in the covenant of be fruitful and multiply. Right?
Okay. So it gives you an instruction, but there's also that link of Adam, we'll put it on the side. Adam and Eve entered into a covenant which was going to be the picture of, again, our Sinai. Ketubah. Okay. A marriage covenant. Right. So again, he goes into the whole process. Adam goes through this whole process of naming each and everything, and then he realizes there's nothing like me, and he realizes, well, that's kind of sucky, and I'm lonely, and now I'm looking for someone else. I'm looking for that missing, I want someone like me. And God allows him to go through that process to help him realize that he's missing something. Okay? He stops him, he goes to sleep, we know the story, he pulls out a rib, and then he creates this other being. Okay, so something that was created before, part of them creates the next piece, that missing piece. Okay? And then he sees Eve, and he's very happy, and then they get given the instructions of X, Y, and Z. But this is one flesh. They came from each other, right? So you could not separate them. Which part is Adam and which part is Eve? No, it becomes one. There's an echad about it. Okay, and we look at obviously echad is again as a way Messiah and the Father work together, and the way he describes himself in Shema. Right? God is echad. There's a unity about him. Right? So we go there, and that gives us a foundation for what he wants to do, and what does that mean? What does God want? Why would he give us a Ketubah statement in the beginning of the story to help us understand that what he wants to do?
Because it sets forth basically the terms and conditions: don't eat of that tree. I will walk with you.
Even before that. I want a partner. I want someone to walk with me. Right? Adam realized that there was no one like him. What did God say before he made Adam? Let us make him
in our image.
In our image. Let someone like me. Okay, and then my interpretation of that, of our image. He wasn't talking about the angels, he was talking about
Sure.
the train. Okay? Something that has a breath, ruach, something that is of the soul, and if we wanted to play that game, why not? Why not? Let's play. We have three different parts, okay, in a sense. We have the Father, for argument's sake, we'll just use Elohim because that's the name he used over there. Then we have Yeshua, and then we have the Ruach HaKodesh.
Yeah.
Okay. Triune, all intertwined, all working together, the Word and the breath, all emanating from the Father. More or less. Okay. So now we look at this and we go, okay, if we are made up, and because we've just come out of Sukkot, body, soul,
Spirit.
mind, will, emotion, roughly, and spirit, we could almost make an illusion, and again, I'm no way trying to surmise anything, this is just another angle that you might not have heard. Which one came in body, in flesh?
Sure.
Yeshua, it's the part I can touch. Touch means, look, I bled. Which one is part of the Ruach?
Spirit.
Spirit. So, Elohim would be interesting. I'm not saying this is 100% accurate because you could probably argue this 13 ways. But it is an interesting illusion to the fact that he thought about you, he chose to create you in an animality.
And he always wants you to put to his will.
Right. So this is not about me, this is about him. Okay? So it's a kind of an interesting illustration that we get played out here.
And just say on that,
Sure.
the soul,
Mm.
there's something within our soul, even if we don't know God, that we're drawn, we're looking to find.
Well, yeah, it's part of that missing. You know,
It's just something inside the soul that's looking for God.
Right. So it's sort of ingrained in it. And again, we can argue, I don't want to argue that this is just another small illustration. On the one hand, on the other hand, on the other hand, on the other hand, because literally you could say, well, Elohim could be all encompassing in all three parts of those things, but yet not at the same time. Okay, but I'm not going to go there. Right, so we've got Adam and Eve. Then, next covenant we mentioned,
No.
Noah. Okay. Noah, scripture reference.
Genesis 6.
Genesis.
6.
Are you guys sure? Are you happy? Genesis 6, Genesis 12, Genesis 6. Yeah, here, this is active Bible study if you don't have it written down. And you have Genesis 6, and that gives you a covenant between who and what?
It's a covenant between God and the nations. Everyone.
God in creation.
God in creation.
Right. So we see that this thing has parties involved, right? So we have it's between God, all of these are between God and creation. Oh, you're dying. And because he's making a covenant with his creation, he's generally how covenants work is there's always a sign or a symbol to make sure that this is going to be put in place. What is the symbol he gave creation that he wasn't going to destroy it again?
Rainbow.
Rainbow. Right, so we have a nice little symbol in it for rainbow.
Somebody denied it.
Right, yeah, well, remember, when everything Hasatan takes hold of something that's pure, and then he tries to distort it so that eventually we don't, in our day and age, rainbows don't mean Noah's covenant anymore. It's far from it. Okay. So he's going to try and do those things, yes, and it's now, it's not, yeah, they're confused. They're confused, okay? Many of us brethren are all over the place. Okay, so we got Noah. Alright? Next covenant.
Abraham.
Father Abraham.
Good old Abe. Right. Abraham, scripture reference.
Genesis 15 to 17.
Oh, it's also a little bit before Genesis 15.
Genesis 12.
Starts at Genesis 12, goes to 15, and again in 17. Right. So you will read through those portions and he'll give different promises or elaborate on the same promises. What I want you to focus on in this one, because it ties in nicely with your menorah studies, Genesis 15. Okay? Go to Genesis 15 for me quickly. Sometime later, the word of Adonai came to Abraham in a vision. Don't be afraid, Abraham, I am your protector. Your reward will be very great. Abraham replied, Adonai God, what good will your gifts be to me if I continue childless, and Eliezer from Damascus inherits my possessions? Eliezer is chief steward, right?
Yes.
You haven't given me a child, Abraham continued. So someone born in my house will be someone born in my house will be my heir. Abraham continues, so someone born in my house will be my heir. But the word of Adonai came to him, this man will not be your heir. No, your heir will be a child from your own body. Then he brought him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars, and if you count them, your descendants will be that many. He believed in Adonai and he credited to him as righteousness. Okay. He believed and it was accredited to him as righteousness. Right?
Faith.
Faith will always lead to righteousness. You believe what God has told you. You believe in the crucifixion, you haven't seen it. Right, but you have tested it and you have asked him and he has revealed to you, and that will be the start of a change of heart that will lead you down a path.
Yeah, because it's a discussion for another day, but I don't agree 100%.
Well, you can't not agree. That's what the Bible says.
It's not just faith and righteousness.
Really?
You can have faith to become righteous, but there's still another act involved. It's an act of obedience. To
Absolutely.
want, to love, to obey.
No, it's not one to love to obey just yet. I hear what you're saying. Listen to what Abraham made. We today have made a separation between belief and righteousness, and obedience are two separate things. To give tzedakah, when you guys came down the stairs yesterday, you heard tzedakah, tzedakah. Tzaddik is righteousness. To give righteousness is an act of charity. Scripture, or the Hebrews, there's a biblical idiom that they use and they say it's called to have a good eye. Right. If you have a good eye, means that you're generous. Right. Okay? We read it and we go, oh no, it's what you see. No, it's not talking about that. In the biblical understanding was that he was generous. He gave money.
In our faith, I refer to it as open-handed against versus tight-fisted.
Right. So if a righteous person, one of his actions is he's generous. How is he generous? Hospitality, with his time, etc., etc. Okay? And then you get to this thing. That leads you to walk out your faith in righteousness. And this is what we need to understand. James summarizes it, but we'll see it with Abraham. Then he said to him, I am Adonai who brought you out from Ur of the Chasdim to give you this land as your possession. He replied, Adonai God, how am I to know that I will possess it? He answered him, bring me a 3-year-old cow, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a dove, and a young pigeon. He brought him all these, cut these animals in two, and placed the pieces opposite each other, but he didn't cut the birds in half. The birds of prey swooped down on the carcasses, but Avram drove them away. The sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell on Avram, horror and great darkness came over him. Okay, now that's the part that we just kind of glance over. We don't understand the horror. Right. God, as you would have read in Genesis 12, is making a promise with your descendants, the stars in the sky. He says, they're going to walk with me, and I will be their God, and you will be my people. His belief that God was going to do this led him into entering into a covenant. Now, the way the covenants work is the word you use is you cut a covenant. Karat berit. Now you cut into it. It's cut into stone, sometimes sealed in flesh, as in an animal will die and you will have a covenant meal. Now this type of covenant was extremely serious because, as we've mentioned before, I cut the animal from tail to snout. And I put piece, and I've got a row of a lot of blood. Let's think about it a second. How much blood does a goat have?
No.
There's a few. What other animals did he have to have then?
A cow.
Birds.
Right. Okay, the birds not so much, but I think the cow would have left a big mess. Right. But you put it on two sloping sides so that the blood will pool in the middle. And he's waiting for a time and he's chasing away the birds of prey. Okay? Now the way this covenant works is that you swear, I swear, you walk through the blood, I walk through the blood, and it's sealed. The underlying thing is this. If you descendants don't fulfill this, you will be made like these animals. Okay? Now, we start to understand. You are going into a covenant with a perfect God. And you, as a man, are representing you and your descendants. Now, if he didn't believe God about a descendant coming, he would never have gone into a covenant with him. What would the point be? So there's an obedience act in it. He trusted him enough that he was going to do those things. His faith was walked out. Let me put it to you this way. You believe Messiah is coming to get you, right? Are you prepared for it? If you're not prepared, then you don't believe he's coming. If you're more about your business than his business, then you don't really believe he's coming. Because you're not prepared. If you believe it's going to rain, you take an umbrella. If you believe you're going to be accountable to God, you prepare as if you are going to be. Because you're going to be. Right. So we have this moment where Avram starts to have a little bit of a panic attack. Okay? For a few moments. It says, deep sleep fell on Avram, horror and great darkness came over him. Adonai said to Avram, know this for certain. Your descendants will be foreigners in a land that is not theirs. They will be slaves and held in oppression for 400 years. Let me just pause there and try and keep my place. Go back to him. Noah, what are we talking about?
Passover.
The redemptive act is going to be here. Pesach, and there we read. Yeah. The first fruits.
Shavuot.
All led up to the giving of Torah and going into a covenant as a people. He's already promising it here.
Yeah, this sentence is a wow factor because those people aren't even born yet. God already knew that they're going to do something to cause himself to be in bondage for 400 years.
Which is going to lead God to the redemptive act because he already promised Abraham. The idea that Sinai was just, well, you're Israel and let's go, has got nothing to do with the fact that the foundations of how these guys got there and to what end they were being brought out was already started to be stipulated here in Genesis 15. Okay? Are you guys seeing that?
Yes.
Children? Well, they say, I'm not really paying attention, I'm convinced, but I'm awake. Okay. But I will also judge that nation, the one that makes them slaves. Afterwards, they will leave with many possessions. Really, he's already talking about the plundering. As for you, you will join your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Only in the 4th generation will your descendants come back here, because only then will the Emorim be ripe for punishment. The Amorites. And remember at the time of Joshua, the Amorites were the people in the land. The Canaanites actually became subservient to them. The Philistines were not strong enough to get rid of them. They were the first coalition that came up against Joshua. So God gives the Amorites 400 years to prove themselves. Patience, grace. And he allows them 400 years for a people who don't even believe he exists.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, I'm preaching to the choir. When people don't see what you see after 5 minutes, then we want to lynch them. And God smiles at you and he says, I waited for you. For me, he waited 25 years before I even knew he existed. So you've been saved for 10 years. Good job. But Abba, why don't they see? Did you? No. Sit down. Okay. It's not me. Abba is busy doing what he needs to do. God is busy doing what he needs to do. But we need to be open to what he's doing and be sensitive to those things. Because the agenda has already been laid out. Okay? After the sun had set, and there was thick darkness, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared. We've got 2 indications of light here. Do Do you guys have any other translation there?
Yeah.
Striking oven and a burning torch.
Okay. Which pass between these animal parts. That day Adonai made a covenant with Abraham. I have given this land to your descendants from the Valley of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River, the territory of the Kenani, the Kenazi, the Kedomi, the Hitti, the Perizi, the Rephaim, the Emoi, the Kenani, the Gershi, and the Yebusi. I'm giving you all this land. I'm setting you up there. And he says he made a covenant with Abraham, but funny enough, Abraham never walked through any blood. You have entered into a binding contract, but you didn't sign any documents. Fair? Unfair?
No.
Well, generally. But there's something hidden in the details here that's going to give us an illusion to what this is all about.
The Shekinah.
Two lights go through. When your descendants break this covenant, and God knows they will, who's going to pay the price?
You should.
You will.
God himself will pay the price.
Yes.
Right, because it was only God who went through.
Mm.
Abraham never went through. So he already makes the indication that he is going to redeem them from this punishment which is going to happen. So your redemptive plan, from Pesach, all the way through to the point of getting them into millennial and thereafter forever, has already been laid out in Genesis 15.
Yes.
And that's crazy, right? How he's going to do that is he's going to take them through the processes so that we understand. Okay? So he's setting this up. This whole entire redemption is laid out in the covenant of Abraham. So when Yeshua takes the beating, he takes the brunt, he takes it all, he knew then already that this is what would happen. Why? Because his descendants are going to muck up and I'm going to have to get them home. I'm going to have to get them back in.
And then when someone tells you there's no grace, that whole sentence.
There's 400 years waiting for people to wake up is all over grace. All right. What is the sign for Abraham's covenant?
Circumcision.
Right, circumcision. What they call a brit milah. Okay? So, how do I know that he's going to have, I'm going to make a covenant with you and your descendants through your seed. So God, very plain and real, says, okay, we're going to snip the part that is going to give you this idea, so don't think that it's going to come from anywhere else. Okay? And
the finger.
yeah. And at 99 years old, he thinks it's a fantastic idea that his whole household has to get done in 318 or such men, all line up, and then they go, no, don't worry. I've done this before. And he goes and he enters into that sign. And again, this is an idea of how joyful or how much he wants this covenant. There is a point where he thinks, for me and my descendants, a little bit of blood, and you receive attractive land, but you don't only get the land, you get God in the land. The real God, the one who created everything. A little bit of discomfort. For a time. For an eternity with him. I'm looking at the long shot. I'm looking at the bigger picture.
Can I just ask a question? Because I got asked once, okay, so God only values men because he did the circumcision with the babies. Now, how as a woman do you explain that? Because I know that God also values us.
There's a lovely, lovely portion. When you look at Abraham, Abraham is not just picked, Sarah is picked.
Yeah.
Right. But what was Sarah's problem?
He was childless.
She was barren. Was it Abraham's problem?
No.
No, because we know that he met Ishmael. So Abraham, even in his old age, he was okay. But Sarah was close. For God to create Israel, he needed to miraculously open up her womb so that she could bring forth Yitzhak. Yitzhak, guess Rebecca,
Also.
barren. He prays with her. If you did this for mommy, he can do this for you. And God opens up the womb. If it was just about fail, why would you listen to it? You see, both people are needed to make children.
Because he did that for Leah and Rachel as well.
Each woman was chosen, handpicked by God to be the perfect partner for what he was creating.
Yeah, I said to the person, so you should really think that it's only a man that makes children. I was like, no, you have two people.
You don't understand. You
It's
have
only
to
one
take
woman
them.
that does adultery.
You take the look at what Abraham, when he went and he asked Eliezer to go find a wife for Yitzhak. And he said, put your hand underneath my thigh. And I've taught you long enough to know that it wasn't his thigh that he had in his hand. Yes. Moet je lekker confusen? It's a euphemism. I put hand, you put male gender parts in my hand. Yes.
It's like getting married.
Just weird.
Alright. Except, yeah, it's one man and another man. It's not Rainbow Covenant, that's how, eh? What happens is, he said, this is the seriousness that I'm placing. I'm putting my lineage, this is the descendants of what's going to come into your hand. And understand what's taking place here. That oath is extremely high. As strange as it may have been, he took it that seriously to send his chief steward to go and look for this person. And that chief steward didn't trust his own skills. He prayed to God to provide the right one. And God prepared this woman so that she would not only be hospitable, but she would be willing to leave and go at a servant's call, not even a master's call.
It's actually quite interesting because Eliezer means God is my help.
Yes.
So if you look at Yeshua, it says he will send the helper.
Yes, which leads us down another rabbit hole, which I shared on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes, so you have
So this page.
you have Abe, you have Isaac, and then you have we're going to put Eliezer in this area. Right. So we have the Father. There you go. We have the Son, and we have the Helper. Right. So the Father has chosen the bride for the Son.
Yes.
Remember, he was not just any son, he was the promised son. He was the one that was nearly sacrificed at the age of 30 odd. Okay. Eliezer, God is my helper, goes up and he picks the bride. And what does he do when he finds out that this is the one God has approved of?
Yes, thanks.
He gives her gifts. He gives her the bling, the jewels. It says she got bracelets and earrings and all that stuff, and she's all very excited. And Laban comes running outside and says, please, please, come in for more, because now he's seen joy. Very excited. What does the Holy Spirit do to you? The gifts of the Spirit. Now the illusion of that is as the bride price has been paid to the Father then would take some of those coins, he would drill little holes in it, and then he would attach it to her veil. That would be the only possession she would wear coming into her marriage. Now this is where things get interesting. She's adorned by the gifts of the Ruach, the helper. And then the helper says, my master's over there, are you willing to leave with me? She goes to meet him. 1 Thessalonians said we will be called up to him.
Mm-hmm.
And the bride prepared, adorned, and delivered by the Lord. And it's a funny illustration talking about Yom Teruah, the sound of that mighty noise, the big Shekhinah, that shofar that gets sound, happens again when the Holy Spirit gets poured out.
Mm-hmm.
At the sound of a trump. It's very possible where this gifting will be the very thing you wear to be presented to Mashiach.
That's true.
She veiled herself when she saw him coming. And she went straight into a tent that was prepared for her. Yes?
Yes.
So we have those other interesting illustrations that talk about all types of fun things. Right. So we have the covenant, of circumcision. This same covenant gets carried over to
Jacob. Isaac.
Isaac. Okay. Isaac, give me scripture reference.
Genesis.
26.
Genesis 26. Okay? Go to Genesis 26. Let's see. See if you can spot the verse for me.
Beersheba
It
from
says, I give you the land to your descendants.
23, I think.
Tell me a story then. Is it just about land? Verse 23.
Oh,
From there, Yitzhak went up to Beersheba. The 7 oaths or the 7?
wells.
Yeah, the 7 oaths, right? So it's this play on what's important about Beersheba? There was a covenant that was struck there. Between who?
Him and his dad. So God, it was.
Well, it was mentioned there
Yeah.
with him, but it was him and Avimelech. Right, Avimelech. What does Avimelech mean? Avi,
Melech is king.
Father,
my father Melech.
King.
king.
Is the king.
So, the king comes down and has another discussion with the son of Abraham. Okay? He appeared to him that same night and said, I am the God of Abraham your father. Don't be afraid, as you normally would be, because I am with you. I will bless you and increase your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. There he built an altar and called on the name of Adonai. He pitched his tent there, and there Yitzhak's servants dug a well. God meets this guy in the region of Beersheba, and he says, I'm the God of your father. I'm going to be with you. Now understand what that must have been to Yitzhak. He saw his father go through this thing, to the point that he was willing to sacrifice him, and how much trust he had, and how many times God had saved him, looked after him, provided for him, protected his mother, all these things happening. And then God comes down and he says, I'm going to make a covenant with you. And he sort of carries on. We're going to talk about descendants and we're going to talk about land. Does that sound familiar? Right. So he sits on top of his father's covenant. He doesn't nullify it. He carries it on. He is a descendant. So the fact that he's being established in the land is already a carry-on promise of what we've already read. But we haven't even got to Pesach and those things yet. So he says, because of your father, my servant Abraham, I am going to carry this on through you. And we're going to see the same thing. Jacob, give me another piece. Okay? So let's put Genesis 12, 15, 17, Genesis 26. Read me a story. Genesis 28, 29.
From verse 10.
Tell me. What does it say?
It says, Jacob went out from Beersheba and traveled toward Haran.
So Jacob's ladder happens.
Okay,
So
carry on.
He came to a certain place and stayed the night there because the sun had set. He took a stone from the place, put it under his head and lay down there to sleep. He dreamt that there before him was a ladder resting on the ground with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of Adonai were going up and down on it. Then suddenly Adonai was standing there next to him, and he said, I am Adonai, the God of Abraham, your grandfather, and the God of Yitzhak. The land on which you are lying I will give to you and to your descendants. Your descendants will be as numerous as the grains of dust on the earth. You will expand to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. But by you and your descendants all the families on the earth will be blessed. Look, I am with you. I will guard you wherever you go, and I will bring you back into this land because I won't leave you until I have done what I have promised you.
Right. So here's this thing. Remember, this is after the point of what? What did he just do? Why is he running? Why is he hanging around in the desert?
Because he cheated his brother.
Right, and his brother was a mooch. Gave away his birthright, gave away the rest of it, cheated his father,
Yeah.
which is funny, because later he gets cheated
Yeah.
well, he meets it a few different ways. Giving two quick illustrations of England he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surprise! Wrong was in that one.
I didn't know that.
First one, and
And
remember
then also
Yaakov is the father of
Two tribes.
the 12 tribes, and then the sons walked up to him and then they said,
his son.
is this not the cloak of your son?
Joseph.
So he was deceived twice. Isn't that an interesting thing?
Was it 3 times?
3 times.
Because Laban also cheated him with his livestock.
Well,
That
he
was
kept on
actually
change.
3 times.
He changed it a lot, but if we're going to include Laban's cheatings, there's going to be plenty.
Okay.
Right. But yeah, he gets cheated again and again and again. So he thinks, okay, you pull the fast one over your old man.
And his mother kind of helped him, the one part.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of issues with that whole story, is that she was right in what she understood. God was going to indeed put him above. Was it right for her to push this her way? No, because what are the consequences for this action? Son's running for his life, and the great heir of it all, with the first son's bracha, is now sleeping, and he's got a rock for a pillow, and he's worried about how he's going to live, not be killed. He has none of the things that he's supposed to have.
Do you think
Mom.
that... Sorry.
Sorry, Mommy never saw Jacob again.
Problems.
She died before he came home.
Do you think that the father would have pulled the ball on Jacob
It's quite possible. He could have changed his mind. He could have done the same way. It's like, you are receiving the blessing. You know, it's funny that his eyes were deceived. His spiritual eyes were closed because he lusted after meat. He wanted meat. He wanted gain, and that's why he wanted to give the blessing, the firstborn blessing to Esau, right? But and then there was a quick shift, and only later did he realize what was going on. But anyway, Jacob goes there running for his life, decides it's a good idea then after seeing a ladder thing. And we all understand this is an allusion to Yeshua, yes? That happened in a place called Bethel, the house of God. And Yeshua makes an interesting statement. He says, what? Where do I get this idea from? Come, help me out.
When you ascend.
No one has ascended and descended. And that same thing only pops up in one other place, where the angels ascended and descended. So he makes an illusion. Yeshua is not trying to tell you who's gone up to heaven and who's come back down. That's plain sense. Remez is linking you to Jacob's ladder. Who's the link between heaven and earth? Yeshua. Something of heaven came down to earth. And we see that in the picture of the colors of the Mishkan, yes? Let me remind you. The colors of the Mishkan: white, red, blue, and purple. White, something that is pure. Red, flesh. Blue, heaven. Purple, royalty specifically, earthly. Right, tell me a story.
Something pure came down in flesh, who was of heavenly, is the king.
Yes, because how do I make purple? Something from heaven and something of flesh will give us the earthly king, the king who will establish himself on earth. In a sukkah, he will dwell among us. Right? Right. Revision. Yeah. Okay, so he sees this ladder and he goes into it, and at that point in time, how is God going to get this right? Well, there's going to be a redemption plan. We're going to need lots of descendants. Who's going to redeem them? Yeshua. When is it going to come through a Passover lamb? To the word that is going to dwell among us. And so we start connecting these interesting little dots, all about Mashiach, getting us to the point of. Yaakov is a little part for you. God says, I'll look after you. I'll get you there. And when you come back, remember Yaakov says, if I come back and I have X, Y, and Z, then you will be my God. Good negotiations. Right? But God meets him where he is. And he goes, all right, you like to wrestle? We'll negotiate a little bit. All right? There was an interesting illusion. I was watching a thing. It says, you know when a sheep breaks a shepherd breaks a sheep's leg, walks with a limp for the rest of his life. Jacob had a limp too.
That's clever.
I know, right? Yeah.
And he got carried away.
Right, so he gets, again, your descendants, land.
Could I just ask a question? Yeah, could you say yeah right now at the same time would be the Israel connotation? Because I know his name gets changed, but could you say the Israel covenant factor is in there?
Now, Israel is actually there with Abraham, right? But how do we get to Israel? Well, we need a couple of generations, we need a few kids, and we need 400 years of captivity. What is going to make them not just physical seed, and what's going to make them God's possession? Is it going to happen at Sinai?
Okay.
You with me?
Yeah.
Now the reason they're at Sinai, Exodus 19 and 20, is because of a promise that made to Abe, which again was carried through Isaac and Yaakov. Now, if we were going to carry on with the illustration of one covenant nullifies another covenant, we've got problems already, because the first foundation of getting to Sinai was promised to Abraham, wasn't promised to Yitzhak, it wasn't promised to Yaakov. Nowhere did we read that there was 400 years of captivity for anybody's descendants in those two places. You with me?
Yes.
So then, why
carried
would...
over to them anyway?
Eh?
Because of their lineage, wouldn't it be carried over the covenant of Abraham?
How? We made it with a man, not with a nation.
He made it, but Jacob was in Abraham.
Doesn't
all the
matter.
guys were in Abraham.
You have a contract. I come to your daughter and make another contract. Does that nullify your contract? But that's what we tell everybody it does. This new one is an established one, because again, when we get to the new covenant, he's still making it with the same group of people. Judah and Israel. We want to teach people that it says nations, but nowhere does it say nations. No goyim are included in that covenant unless you're part of Israel. And to be part of Israel, you need to understand Sinai.
Yeah.
You can't get away from the fact. If you're grafted into a nation, that doesn't mean you're a new nation with your own rules. That means when you move to Israel, you're going to be under Israeli rule. Simple. Okay? This establishment is going to lead us to Sinai, and then we get the Decalogue, the 10 words. Okay? Now, what is the sign we have for this covenant?
The
Yeah.
Ten Commandments, essentially.
Exodus 19, 20, and it goes all the way up to 32, and so Torah gets given. Okay? Shabbat is your sign. Shabbat is your symbol. It says all over Scripture, this will be a sign between you and me. Yes?
Yes.
Foreign verse? No, not entirely. If you keep my Sabbaths, if you hold fast to my covenant, Isaiah 56, I will bring you up to my holy mountain. But hang on a second. He said that to the Gentiles who keep my Shabbatot and keep my covenant. These are the Ruths. These are the Rahabs. These are the people that have made alignment with Israel. And they understand that there is a Sabbath. In Hebrews it says, indeed, there is a day of rest for God's people. There is still, even after Mashiach. Does that mean, and again, don't get confused. You will hear people make the claim that it has now been moved to Sunday. And they will say, the believers in Acts met on the first day of the week. They're 100% correct. Why?
Because they did.
Yeah. Because if I go to synagogue on Shabbat, what do we read? Torah. And what is our secondary reading? Half Torah, the prophets. Right, when are we going to read about Yochanan? Oh, sorry, you have to come to another class for that one. When will that class begin? Never. Because you are the people of the book. You will study Torah and Torah only. Yeshua did it. There's nothing wrong with it. You study God's word and you learn to live it. You need to understand His heart in those things as you establish it. But to read the writings of other people, they got to get on the first day. And that could have been Saturday night. Okay? Or maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We're not sure. Right? But you get to this place where they met on the first day of the week. And their thinking was, He was resurrected on the first day of the week and God started creating on the first day of the week. So that's a good choice. Did they change Shabbat? Absolutely. We know that came much later and we have documentation to prove that it was the Catholics who changed Sabbath. Now, I'm not going to go into Catholic bashing, I'm just going to simply say this. God said, this is my day, and it will be a sign between you and me. If you belong to me, keep my day. If you don't, don't. My question to me was, am I following God or am I following man? Do I belong to an institution or do I belong to the kingdom of heaven? I chose God's day, and no one's going to tell me otherwise. Right. So with that Shabbat, the Shabbatot, every time we have a major feast, there are Sabbaths involved. Those are signs too. Okay. So He'll give us a list. But understand in Exodus 19, He says, guys, I have carried you on eagle's wings, I have brought you unto myself, and if you keep my instruction, then you will become a peculiar treasure. Then you will be a holy nation set apart. Because holiness is about following an action. He says, be holy for I am holy. He doesn't say, wear holiness and then you will be holy. Now there is an aspect to that where the Messiah will cover you to that point. But there is also an action where you can choose to shirk Messiah and carry on in the world. Your choice. You can be clean or holy. What's the difference? Anointing. One is used for common. That's a coffee cup that I can drink out of every day. Now if I take something out of the temple and I want to use it as my everyday coffee cup, I'm taking something that was set apart only for the temple and I'm making it common. And I can't, if I'm going to make something common or clean and make it holy, I have to anoint it and I have to only use it for that purpose. It is set apart for that purpose. That's what holiness is. So now when you go into it, when you go into it, Torah is not the covenant. Torah is the gift because of the covenant.
It's part of it.
This is not my marriage vows. This is a symbol, the Shabbat, of my marriage vows. What are the benefits of being married to my wife? I get to wake up next to her, I get to go to sleep next to her, and we get to live in the same house. The instruction was a gift for a redeemed people. This isn't the Torah. It symbolizes everything that comes with it. You with me? Okay? So the covenant is what God establishes with the people. And we know the only reason they're there is because of this covenant here. Now we're going to see that pattern again. There's a group of blessings. I want you to find the blessings for me quickly. For the tribe of Judah. Just take 2 minutes to find that blessing.
Genesis 49.
Okay, read that thing for me.
Genesis 49 verse 8. Judah, your brothers will acknowledge you, your hand will be on the neck of your enemies, your father's sons will bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub, my son, you stand over the prey. He crouches down and stretches like a lion, like a lioness who dares to provoke him. The scepter will not pass from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his legs, until he comes to whom obedience belongs, or until Shiloh comes. And it is he whom the peoples will obey, tying his donkey to the vine, his donkey's colt to the choice grapevine. He washes his clothes in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk.
Right. The scepter will not pass. I'm just going to take one piece that is enough there to
Yeah.
discuss for an hour. And many times with Revelations about describes Yeshua coming and all those things, those interesting things. But when you look at the scepter will never pass. Royalty in Israel has not even been established at the time Judah was getting this blessing. Right, but yet we see another man entering into a personal covenant with God between his household within Israel. And we see the fullness of that happen because of that blessing. We see David's covenant with God, which will again be the line of Mashiach.
Just move it slightly. That's not, yeah, that's good.
And we see David's covenant being played out, and Messiah's fulfilling of that covenant. He is ruling and reigning forever because of our promises in Genesis 49. Right, because of that blessing, Judah gets a link to royalty, he's a lion, and they get a staff, a scepter, a ruler's staff that will carry on forever. How will we understand that? I give you David. In the prophets they call him Messiah. David will rule for them in the millennial age. He will rule. But David, at the time that prophet wrote that, had been dead for about 400 years. David becomes a messianic symbol, and he will come from the tribe of Judah. Now hang on a second. Which part of this establishes it? This part. That, or David, does not nullify Genesis 49. The same way Sinai does not nullify Abraham, and Abraham does not nullify Sinai.
Galatians 3 as well.
Go to that passage. It's Galatians 3:13 or 16 or something.
If someone beats me, please.
17 is what it
It's possible.
Yeah.
Read what it says.
Now say Torah that came 430 years later. Does not another covenant previously confirmed by Adam and Messiah just to do away with the promise?
Right, you stop there. So Galatians clearly states 3:17 in some Bibles 3:16 that just because the covenant came later, it does not nullify the promises of that which happened previous. But we teach it as such because we have an understanding that a covenant means what? A contract. And our contract, if we write out a new contract, nullifies the old one. Or, let's talk about that word fulfill that everybody likes to talk about. Let's fulfill the contract. Now I dry cleaning. I give you my shirt, I get a ticket. When I come back, I give you money, I get clean shirt. Do I owe him anything? Does he owe me anything? No. The contract has been fulfilled. But that's our understanding, not their understanding. This covenant is intergenerational. The promises are from descendants to descendants to descendants. It's an eternal covenant. It's an eternal sign. It's an eternal circumcision will be an eternal sign between you and me. Shabbat will be a sign everlasting. You can't get away from it. It doesn't say until Messiah comes. It talks about an eternal sign. Now, if it is eternal, that means it must all be valid. How do I distinguish between a God-fearing father and the fact that he wants his children or his son to be dedicated unto God?
Circumcision
Circumcision. Is the mitzvah for the son or for the father?
to the father.
You acknowledge the fact that your gift, your son is your gift, is the one and you're giving him to God. That is a special privilege. Because he promised you, if you follow me, what? You will have sons and daughters, and you will be able to dedicate them, and they will be my people, and I will be their God. And we can just sit and we can go back and say, God, you've not only saved me, but you also want to save my children, and my children's children, my children's children, and you want to give them a home, and you want to give them eternity, and you want to give them all that stuff, and all I need to do is take him when he's 8 years old and watch him cry for a little bit because he gets a little bit of a snap. Done. You get excited about that because you know the pain is temporary, the benefit is eternal.
It's, also, Paul makes mention that circumcision is a sign of righteousness.
Yeah, good old Paul. Nice to confuse issues, but let's not go there. Right. So we have these moments, okay, where we'll see covenants hinging on promises that God made already. Sinai happened because of Abraham. Sinai happened because of Isaac. Sinai happened because of Yaakov. All of those things led up to this time, where a nation and the mixed multitude that was there with them came up to them and said, we also want to be included. And he didn't go, one nation, he didn't go, you Gentile people and you not so Gentile. Says, one group, one nation, one law. Right?
Yeah.
And he establishes that. Okay, so we go from Sinai, and we've got a few little sub-covenants or little covenants that get made individually. We've got the covenant with Aaron. Okay? We've got, where did I write this down?
Is that the soul covenant?
Yes.
Okay.
In the next place, quickly. I'm scribbling on this whiteboard like I scribble all over my notes. Alright, you guys are happy? I can take this away, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we've got covenant with Aaron. Aaron. Numbers. And what does that tell me?
Therefore, I read from 7, it tells us that there will be a priesthood. I'm just trying to find the verse.
Numbers 18 and 19, yeah?
Yeah.
18 verse 19.
Possible.
Yes, thanks, Lord. All the heave offerings of the holy things which the children of Israel offer to the Lord, I will have given to you and your sons and daughters with you as an ordinance forever. It is a covenant of salt forever before the Lord with you and your descendants.
So this one is called the covenant of salt. And who's it between?
The
Priesthood.
priesthood
And?
in Israel.
Does it say and his descendants?
Yes, that's
Yes.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
Very similar. These things are intergenerational. If you do your part, then I will do mine. And we understand that the covenant of salt represented what?
Loyalty.
Loyalty, right? Salt is used for what?
Cleansing,
Cleansing,
Flavor.
flavor,
healing.
okay, cleansing, preserving. It's preserving. You salt something, you dries it out, and you can eat it later, you make fish jerky.
Yum, yum.
Big export biblical times. Aren't you glad you're in South Africa? Right.
Can we get bottles?
So, yeah, it's better than having getting fish bottle. Right. So you have him sitting over there. He says, I'm going to sprinkle you out. But how do I know that was God's plan from the beginning? Go back to Genesis 49.
Yeah, I don't find the salt. Where does it mention salt? 19.
18 verse 19.
There you go.
Referring to the Levite blessing.
Yes, tell me what it says. Simeon and Levi.
Simeon and Levi are brothers, instruments of cruelty, are in the dwelling place. Let not my soul enter the council, let not my honor be united to the assembly. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they hamstrung an ox. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel.
So one gets divided in Jacob,
No, scattering.
another one gets scattered throughout Israel. Now, Simeon gets absorbed in the tribe of Judah. When you look at when they get given their inheritance, Judah surrounds them. They were a tribe inside of it. And the Levi gets sprinkled throughout. So he already knows what's coming. He takes their personalities into consideration. He sets it up that way. And then later at Sinai, they sort of redeem themselves by being the only tribe that assembles behind Moses. And that they were going to go and sort out the rest of the camp with that golden calf. And all of a sudden that sprinkling is going to bring God's Torah. And God's Torah is going to preserve the people in the land. If you keep my ways, you can stay. Bottom line. It will cleanse the land. So it's going to get rid of all the chach that the Amorites and everything they had to deal with. And the Levites are dealing with unclean, clean and holy the whole time. What else does it do? Preserve, it cleans, and
Flavor.
it's flavor.
Yeah.
Sweet as honey. It's going to bring Torah into these people's lives. But again, we go back to the original, and that salt covenant was a covenant of loyalty in the time. And that loyalty, if you remember correctly, they do it in the Middle East till today. Before a bride and a groom touch hands for the first time, they dip their hands and they cover them with salt. And then they're allowed to touch their hands and they say, I will be loyal to you and you'll be loyal to me. That's what it's underlying. Okay? I'm going to look after you, you're going to look after me. And that whole thing of I am accountable to you as you were accountable to me kind of comes into that background. So God says, if you teach my words, if you keep my feast, if you guide my people, then I will take care of your food. Because you will eat of the offerings that I've promised, right?
That's what I was going to say. Leviticus 2 from 13, it talks about, where it says that from the grain offering you will add salt. But it actually also says with all the offerings you will add
It's a
salt.
continual reminder that this is, they eat from that offering. They get to eat meat when they work. If not, they're in the Levitical cities and they're maintaining their things and they're also preparing for their times of service as they come up. Also dealing with the people in the cities of refuge, because those were also Levitical cities, right? So they've got a job to do and then as they play out. All right, what other ones? We've got another covenant that you mentioned.
Pinchas.
Pinchas.
Parasha 51.
Pinchas.
Numbers 25 from 10.
Numbers 25. Okay, talks about, this one is called the Covenant of
Peace.
Covenant of Peace. Is this the only place we see it?
You mean the covenant of peace?
No, you better have more answers than I doubted because I taught it on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's in
Covenant of
Isaiah
Peace.
54.
Ezekiel 37 and Isaiah 54.
Right, so we see this in Ezekiel. Ezekiel what?
37 and Isaiah 54.
And Isaiah 54. Okay. I'm going to leave that there because that's a topic by itself. Okay? Anybody else? Spoke about this one?
It's the David's
David's covenant.
It's 2 Samuel 7.
Okay, what does that talk about?
It talks about the scepter not passing.
Okay.
And so David will have a dynasty forever.
Is it just for David or is it for his descendants as well?
It's
For his lineage.
Because he brings in the temple.
And what will be the sign for David?
the house.
The house. kind of interesting. This one, you'll have food. Okay? I am your inheritance. This one talks about peace in very interesting ways, which we'll get to. The house and the house.
Yeah.
Let me do this. His house and God's house. The sign that he's there is that he will have someone, one of his sons, on the throne. And that God's house will be established. Temple, Mishkan, will be established there. The two go hand in hand. The king will read Torah. He will judge according to Torah. The only reason you are a king is because of a promise made again, Genesis 49, and the nation gets established here in Exodus 19, 20, and so on. And because that nation has been established and God is their king, we know the story. They go against Samuel, they elect a king. David is the king after God's own heart because he understands Teshuvah and he understands worship of God. He understands walking in Torah. Right? It is about God's opinion, even though he made mistakes time and time again. Right? God is what's going to establish that. Okay?
Before, I just want to check, would you also include David and Jonathan's covenant, or is that not?
Well, that's the picture of two other people again. It's not really included with God. I'm trying to focus on God's covenant and intergenerational blessings that carry on with it. The reason Solomon had a throne was because of David. The reason David had a throne was because of Sinai. The reason Sinai happened was because of Abraham, and in the midst of it, some kid called Judah got a couple of blessings that he didn't understand and realized that was actually pointing at David and Messiah. But you, again, let me come back to the point. Do you see how interlinked these things are? Right, with that in mind, next week we are going to dissect. Yes.
Not really finished, the new covenant, the new covenant.
Well, next week. Tune in next week.
Yeah, I know what to do.
On the next layer, I'm going to put here in inverted commas, new. Do me a favor. For your homework next week, study the word Chadash. Brit Chadasha. Brit means covenant. Brit Milah, Brit Chadasha is the word we use for our New Testament. Study the word Chadash and see what you come up with. Is it always used in context as something brand spanking new?
How do you spell it?
Slowly.
C-H-A.
If you're going to break it down into English, it's kind of like Chadash.
Yeah.
Chadash. Sometimes they will put a KH to make sure you make the noise. Okay, it's not a Chadash, it's a Chadash. Alright, so the Brit Chadasha, Brit is female, that's why we have the A at the end. So Brit Chadasha, look at context of when this is used in scripture and tell me then whether it is only something brand new or not. That will give you a rabbit trail to run down with and give you some context. Then do me a favor of looking at the Paleo-Hebrew of what the Brit actually is. Okay? That'll also take you back down a rabbit hole. And then, when we put these interesting things together, we're going to look at this. Please refresh your memory about what we were discussing, including Galatians 3 and the promises of old as we get into, to look at where do we get our new covenant scriptures from?
Do you want it?
Jeremiah 31 and Ezekiel
36,
It also is in basic.
Hebrews 8.
Hebrews 8 is a remnant to those two.
But it mentions one or two
Yeah.
different.
As you go into it, we're going to again focus on this. If you want to, we can include Hebrews 8 there. I'm going to be focusing on this. Look at it and see to whom it is given. Is it intergenerational? What is the sign? Okay? And what is it that he's going to establish through it? And then when we're done with that, I will take you straight into the covenant of peace, and then we will discuss layer upon layer again.
So, sorry, but I want to know in correlation of Sinai,
Yes.
Does the priestly covenant and Phineas, Phinehas not come on top of the building block thing?
They do. But,
Like only more later rather?
oh no, they do. Because Sinai happens, this is Exodus, and then Numbers and all those interesting things happen while they're in the wandering. This new one comes with, starting with crucifixion, really gets established with Acts 2, and then gets fully established in millennial, as you will see. Okay? So you can actually put Aaron and Pinchas and then David and then the new covenant on top of it, like we've done Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? They're all interlinked. All promises of things have come before, and those things are the reason those things are happening because God's covenant. Alright, all happy?
Yes.
So, Chadasha, or look at Chadash, look at the paleo of Brit. Okay, you can do the paleo of Chadash if you want as well.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, do the paleo of Chadash, and then go into Jeremiah 31 and Ezekiel 36, and I want you to give me your findings. What is the covenant established? What are its stipulations and who's it with? Same thing with covenant of peace. Okay? We can maybe talk about the sons of Sadok as we go. Alright, happy? Alright, prayer time is every time.